Hey guys, so in this video I want to talk about the most common mistakes you're all making. The mistakes and solutions I'll discuss will be geared more towards your mentality and your overall gameplay. It won't be things like, oh, you're messing up your 90s, so just look down more when you're placing your floor. No, that is not what this video is about. What you can't improve upon and fix by just endlessly grinding and creative are things like your mindset or blaming RNG in the game. These are just a few of the topics that we'll go over and that by the end of the video I can hopefully help you all improve upon. I'll throw some timestamps on the screen now, so feel free to skip around if you think you're making one mistake but not another. You guys know I always think it's best to watch the whole thing through though, and this applies more than ever to this video. Last thing I want to mention is that the mistakes I'll cover won't be in any specific order of importance or anything like that. It's just the order that they popped into my brain. With that being said, let's start off by talking about one of the biggest mistakes that I constantly see within my comment section: practicing inefficiently. I bet the large majority of you guys don't even realize that you're practicing inefficiently. Every time I upload a video where I talk about different ways to improve, like my 6 ways to actually improve at Fortnite video, I always see comments like,
Jarian, I grind for 12 hours a day and I still can't get to champions in arena or win a solo match.
Some of these comments might be people trolling honestly, but even when I lay out exactly what I do and what most pro players do to practice and improve, there's still a bunch of you guys who watch the whole video and you just still can't seem to get it or get better. These are the people that are actually following my guides and doing what I say to do. These aren't the clowns that just hop on and play Team Rumble for an hour and then are confused why they haven't qualified for the World Cup yet. The mistake you guys who are actually practicing and practicing a lot are making is that you're not practicing efficiently and you're not focused on the right things. If you play for 8 hours of squads with your friends and that's all you do, I can guarantee I'll get better overall in half that time by playing arena matches, doing some creative aim training and edit courses, and build battling against my friends. I majored in economics in college, so if there's any other econ students out there, you guys will know a lot about efficiency. Being efficient just means maximizing your output with minimum wasted work and effort. In Fortnite, it would be improving your gameplay in the least amount of time played as possible. You won't improve unless you're actually going out and trying to do it. Even if you're playing and grinding for hours on end, you won't necessarily win more games because of it. A mistake is something that can be fixed and that has a solution. The mistake we're talking about is practicing inefficiently. In order to practice more efficiently, you need to focus your practice on what your weak point is. Everyone has aspects of their games they can improve upon, whether it be aiming, or building, or editing, or game sense. Whatever it is, everyone can improve upon one of those things. Even the best players in the world technically have something they can improve upon. It doesn't mean that you're bad at whatever it is you want to improve at. It just means that aspect of your gameplay isn't up to par with the others. Me personally, building and specifically building for high ground is my weak point. It's by no means bad. I'm not trying to like humble brag here and be like,
Oh, I'm not that good at building.
but when I watch back my matches or I think about the way I played out fights, I know my building is not as strong as my aim or my game sense. If I didn't practice build fights and going for height in real games, even if it's not the right time to build for high ground, then I would never improve. If I spend 6 hours playing Team Rumble and I never get into any build fights, of course I won't get better at building in Fortnite overall. In order to start practicing efficiently, you need to find what your weak point is, then follow my other videos on improving for how you can improve that specific aspect of your game, like using an aim trainer or edit courses, stuff like that. A lot of you guys might not be able to find a specific weak point that you have. If you can't, it probably means that you need to improve at everything. A good way to identify what you're weak at is to just go into replay mode and see why you're dying. Did you die because you lost a build battle? Then it's your building. Did you miss a bunch of AR shots and then die? Then it's your aim. Did you miss an edit or did you edit too slowly? It's your editing. Or lastly, did you die because you took a fight when you shouldn't have? Then it's your game sense. Find why you're dying, narrow it down to a specific part of your gameplay, and then go in and grind out practice drills to improve upon your weak point. That's how you'll improve fast and stop practicing inefficiently, which is one of the biggest mistakes I see you guys making. The second mistake I see a ton of people make is blaming RNG or randomness in Fortnite. Yes, Fortnite has a ton of RNG. Every time you open a chest, there's randomness in what you get. Every floor loot spawn has random loot and has a chance of not even spawning. Everything down to shooting guns in Fortnite involves RNG because of Bloom. I could be aiming directly at your body, but if I'm spraying my AR at you and I don't have first shot accuracy, Bloom could make it so I miss every single shot. And that's all because of randomness and luck, no skill involved at all. But the mistake is letting RNG in Fortnite affect your mindset and your gameplay. Anytime I mention RNG in a video, I see about 50 comments that say the same exact thing.
But Jarian, I landed on 3 different chests and they all had semi-auto snipers. I can't do anything about that.
You're right and you're wrong. You're wrong because you can just land anywhere else. Obviously, it's not always going to be that easy, but if you land on floor loot, then you don't take the gamble of landing on a chest or in a house where you have no idea what the loot is or if there's any loot there at all. The best players in the world are the best, not only because their mechanics are the best, but because they know how to minimize RNG the best. Taking a fight mid-game has so many different aspects of RNG involved, from the RNG of third partying, to RNG and shotgun damage in Bloom, to zone RNG. You literally cannot control any of it. What you can control is the fact that you won't take the fight, or you'll do your best to disengage and get away from it. If RNG was such a huge factor, there wouldn't be insane players like FaZe Dubs and E11 Stompy getting top 5 in World Cup qualifiers 5 different times. You can sit there and cry about how bad your RNG is all day long. You gotta realize though, Dubs and Stompy are playing the same game as you. You're probably asking, how do they minimize their RNG so well then? Because that honestly is a great question. It's probably the hardest question you can ask in Fortnite. If I could give a definite answer, then I'd be qualified for the World Cup too, but I'm not, and I won't act like I am. What I can do is tell you guys and show you guys that you can't always blame RNG, and that watching top tier pros that consistently do well will help you minimize your own RNG. I will admit there will be times where it's impossible to completely minimize RNG, and RNG will just take a dump on you. Everyone, including Epic Games, knows this. It's why the Fortnite tournaments consist of like 7 or 8 games, and why the World Cup qualifiers are 3 hours long. Some games you'll get the worst RNG possible and nothing will go right for you, but don't make the next mistake of letting it tilt you and letting it affect how you play out your next games. This is especially important for World Cup qualifiers and Arena. So much of consistently playing well and placing highly is mental and keeping a good mindset. The moment that you tilt and you start thinking the game is out of your control is when the game will become out of your control, not because of RNG in the game, but literally because you started to tell yourself that you won't win. Hello there, use code Jarian, thank you. I remember back in the Winter Royale qualifiers, I started off really well, but then I hit a small roadblock when I just couldn't seem to find any good loot early game. I started to tilt and I ended up throwing and dying off spawn for like 3 games. Then I won 2 games in a row and was at like 23 or 24 points with 45 minutes or so to go. Again, I started to tilt and finished at that amount. I think the qualifying amount was 28, so all I needed was 1 decent game to qualify, but mentally I just wasn't there and it held me back. What I try to do now in qualifiers is just remind myself that throwing a couple of games isn't the end of the world. All you need are a few games to pop off in and you can qualify for Sunday finals or even the World Cup in New York City. This can even apply to individual games and fights. If you have terrible loot off spawn, all you need to do is kill one guy who has a lot of good loot and then you're right back into the game. If you're low in a fight, all you need to do is get one good shotgun shot off in their face to kill your opponent. Whatever the situation is, tilting won't do you any good, so don't make the mistake of letting Fortnite get to you and affect you mentally, because you'll only play worse and tilt even more. The last common mistake that I want to talk about that kind of ties the whole video together is not learning from your mistakes. This itself is a huge mistake and is arguably the worst mistake you can make. Luckily, I think it's the easiest to fix. I'm a firm believer in the idea that practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you're practicing a lot, like we talked about before in the first mistake, but you're practicing the wrong things, you're going to keep making the same mistakes. A good example would be if you were practicing endgame situations with moving zones. What you should be doing is playing zone wars and working on your gameplay from high ground, mid ground, and low ground. But if every single time you play zone wars, you just mindlessly build up for high ground, that's not perfect practice. It is practice, but it's not good practice or the right practice. In actual matches, especially World Cup qualifiers, there are so many different factors that should go into how you take high ground. Do you have enough mats? How secure is high ground? How many people are actually above you? When you're only practicing going for high ground in zone wars, you're going to make the mistake of doing the same things in real matches. That's why you practice, so you can actually use it in game. But with bad practice and not correcting your mistakes, you'll just keep making them. Back to our example, going for high ground isn't always the best play. That should be pretty obvious. And sometimes high ground isn't even the best position. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people make the same mistakes repeatedly. These are the same people that don't learn from their mistakes. Obviously, if they learned from them in the first place, they wouldn't make the mistakes over and over again. The way you can identify these mistakes is the same way that you identify what you're weak at. Record your gameplay or go into replay mode and see why you died, why you didn't secure a kill, or why you didn't win the game. Everyone, including the best players in the world, will make mistakes throughout the game that will cost them shields, fights, wins, or potentially tournament placings and money. Big or small, mistakes will happen, and it's okay to make mistakes just as long as you're not making the same ones over and over again and that you're learning from them. Overall, just stop mindlessly practicing for hours. You need to identify your weak point in order to improve your overall game. Stop blaming RNG and tilting as a result of it. You'll never get any better that way. And lastly, stop making the same mistakes. Learn from them and improve by understanding why you made them in the first place. So if this video helped you guys out, be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. If you haven't already, make sure to enter my Ducky12 mini giveaway that I'm doing. You can find all the info on my Twitter @itsjarian. Just follow all the steps to enter, and the winner will be announced in a couple of weeks. Lastly, I want to thank everyone who's using code Jarian. I'll be doing more giveaways in the future with supported creator money, so again, I appreciate everyone who's using my code. Otherwise, that's it from me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.